You're listening to the Catholic Wives with Toxic In-Laws podcast. Today's episode is about why holidays make your toxic in-laws' behavior seem more acceptable. Are you a Catholic wife grappling with challenging in-laws? The Catholic Wives with Toxic In-Laws podcast is your sanctuary for navigating the sometimes stormy seas of life with toxic in-laws while being validated for what you've experienced. Join me, your host, Miriam Susan, a Catholic wife who's weathered 3 decades of in-law drama, as we tackle the tough issues you're dealing with head on. Hi, welcome to today's episode. I am your host, Miriam Susan, and I want to thank you so much for being here today. Today, we're going to be talking about why there's like something in the air, something in our minds that makes us feel like the toxic behavior from our in-laws is more acceptable during the holiday season. And it might be something like your mother-in-law making just a really cutting comment about your cooking over Thanksgiving dinner. Or maybe your father-in-law shows up unannounced on Christmas Eve trying to help or be Santa when your family doesn't even celebrate Santa. Or maybe you have an in-law that gives your kids gifts that either directly contradict your family values, or it's a gift that you planned to give your children yourselves, and now it's going to be sitting in a closet, and you have to figure out how to return it because grandma and grandpa swooped in and gave your child that gift. And all of this, generally, for me, would cause butterflies or a knot in my stomach. And then it was just dismissed, and people would say, well, it's Christmas, just let it go. But why is it that behavior that we wouldn't tolerate in the middle of August suddenly get a free pass just because it's December? Why is that? Why do we do that? It makes no sense. So today we're going to explore why the holidays just suddenly make toxic behavior feel more acceptable. And not just to the people doing it. Like, obviously, our toxic in-laws feel like it's much more acceptable to be even more toxic, to ratchet up things on another level around the holidays. But why does it feel more acceptable to us? So we're going to explore what's really happening during this holiday season that makes us tolerate things that just aren't okay. So first of all, there is this cultural pressure of the holiday magic, the fairy dust and the soft focus photo, all those kinds of things. We have been conditioned pretty much since childhood to believe that the holidays are supposed to be magical and perfect. So there's this enormous cultural pressure that we are supposed to gather together, to be happy, to create memories. In our area, we see commercials from a grocery store called Publix, and it is my favorite grocery store. But they have these ads, and it's like, everybody shows up at the holidays, and they're all smiling, and they have the most beautiful food that they're going to be bringing, and the gifts are just perfectly wrapped, and the kids are well-behaved. I mean, all these things. And that's what we've been conditioned to believe that the holidays are supposed to be. But that's an enormous amount of stress that we put on ourselves because we believe that that's what the holidays are supposed to look like. But when toxic behavior shows up, we're then caught between 2 competing pressures. The one is the reality of what's happening, the disrespect, the boundary violations, the manipulations, the gaslighting, all these kinds of things, these undermining our authority as parents. And then on the other side, we have this script that is running on repeat in our minds. It says, well, if you're a good Catholic, you're going to make the holidays work. You're going to do what you can to make things work. And this holiday narrative makes us feel like we are the problem if things aren't picture perfect or Publix commercial perfect. If your mother-in-law is being difficult, then maybe it's because you're not trying hard enough. And I'm not saying that is true. I'm saying that these are the thoughts. that we have in our heads, right? If our husband is stressed out about making sure mom and dad are happy, then we are the ones guilty because we're rocking the boat. We're making waves. And we start believing that putting up with and enduring and forbearing this bad behavior is just the price of admission for family togetherness. And then there's this layer of spiritual, I would say, manipulation over the top of it when we think, well, this is what Jesus would want. So as Catholic women, we put this layer on top of all of this other pressure. So we have, the cultural pressure. We have this idea that, this is really toxic. So those are the two first pressures, that the reality and this cultural script that we are listening to over and over in our heads. But then, because we're Catholic, we add on another layer, and that is the belief that offering up this suffering through difficult family dynamics is somehow virtuous. And offering suffering up is a good thing to do. But when we confuse keeping the peace by just putting up with this suffering when we really should not, that's not true peace. We're not keeping the peace for everybody if we are just trying to appease some toxic behaviors. That is not what true peace is. And we mistake enabling this dysfunctional family dynamic with being charitable. And we think that setting boundaries during Christmas makes us unchristian, uncatholic, that we're doing things that Jesus would be disappointed in. But there's a difference. There's a difference between Christ-like love, which includes truth, protection of our children and of our families and of our marriage and of our own mental health, and right ordering of relationships, going back to the proper order of a Catholic family with God first, spouse second, children third, and the whole rest of the world fourth. And so there's a difference between that, the love that Christ would demonstrate, versus the performance of family harmony, because it's fake. It's like you are an actor and you are pretending that things are okay when it's not, and pretending that this toxic behavior that you're experiencing isn't really happening. So I want to bring in our scripture verse for today. It's from the Gospel according to St. John, chapter 14, verse 27. And this is from the New Revised Standard Version, Catholic edition. And it says, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid." So, of course, you should recognize that scripture from the Mass, because that's what we talk about in the Novus Ordo, about the offer each other the sign of peace. And Jesus is distinguishing in this scripture between his peace and the world's peace. The world's peace is an absence of conflict, is everyone getting along on the surface. It means not rocking the boat. But his peace, Christ's peace, is deep, and it's grounded in truth, and it sometimes requires difficult conversations. Now, during the holidays, we are often chasing the world's version of peace, like everybody smiling for photos, everybody looking like they do in those Publix commercials and the holiday commercials that come out this time of year, rather than Christ's peace, which includes authentic relationships, it includes proper boundaries, it includes the protection of our vocation as wives and mothers. So what if the peace that you're trying to keep during the holidays isn't actually peace at all? So for us then, as wives and mothers, there are even bigger stakes for us, right? We feel responsible for our husband's emotional experience with his family. We feel like we need to make sure that he has a good holiday with his parents, even when his parents are acting up, or his siblings, or his grandparents, or his aunts and uncles, whoever it is that's toxic in your family. We feel like it's our responsibility to make sure our husbands have this wonderful experience with his family. And then as mothers, we feel this pressure to give our children these magical holiday memories. And it's almost like we are supposed to make their Christmas like the Walt Disney World commercials, right? And there's just supposed to be like this magical, sparkly fairy dust that's over everything that they do. But the thing about this, now I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to, help our husbands have a wonderful holiday, that we shouldn't do what we can, what we're able to do to help our children enjoy this special holiday season. But our in-laws will weaponize this desire that we have and kind of turn it against us. And they'll say things like, well, don't ruin Christmas for your husband by making him choose between you and the rest of the family. Have you heard stuff like that before? And you might hear things like, well, don't deprive your children of participating in the family traditions. If you're listening on audio, I just made a face because I've heard these things before. And it's like, well, what do you mean you're not going to come to the family gathering? I mean, this is what we always do. Your children love it so much. This is the chance for the cousins to all get together and everybody to see everybody else. So our in-laws will weaponize these things that can be good in and of themselves, but they turn it into a weapon. And toxic in-laws tend to be really good at turning things that could be good, including scriptures, which of course are good, against us and using them to manipulate us and to try to shame us. So when our in-laws cross lines during the holidays, we end up doing a whole lot of mental math and think, okay, well, how upset will my husband be if I say something? How upset will he be if I tell him I don't want to go to his parents' house on Christmas morning, that I want to stay home and celebrate Christmas, opening presents at our house, just us? And then we think, will this ruin Christmas for my kids if I don't let them go to their cousins and hang out and play like we always have? And we might also be calculating the mental math on, can I survive? Can I survive all of this until January because my in-laws are here and they're staying with us? God bless you if you are in this situation and you have your in-laws staying with you, because I know what that's like. We never had them come visit us for holidays because it was always expected that we go see them. In spite of us having lots of little children, it didn't matter. We were expected to be there for the holidays. Now, we did take turns where one year we'd go see my in-laws and the next year we'd go see my parents, but it was never us. Like, we always were going somewhere else. Now, to be fair, my mom was always very willing to say, you stay home, you spend Christmas with your family, and you come see us whenever it's convenient. But with my husband in the military, it was a lot easier to get time off over Christmas. And so at that time, I don't know if that's the case now, but it was just easier for us to go see them at Christmas and do things then than it was to bump things back or forward and visit them at another time. So yeah, it was just a lot of pressure from my in-law side that if it was not the year we were spending with my parents, then it was definitely the year to spend with them. And then thinking, maybe if I give her this gift, she'll accept me. Maybe if I bake this side dish for the Christmas meal, she will be happy. Maybe if I let my children perform in this ridiculous play that she wanted my kids to participate in at the family Christmas gathering, that would make her happy, that would bring her the glory in front of her extended family that she desired, and that would finally appease her. But it never did. Of course, it never did. So you're not crazy if you're doing all this mental math. The holidays do make toxic behavior seem more acceptable because the stakes feel artificially higher. One boundary violation in March is just a regular Tuesday. But that same violation in December feels like you are ruining Christmas for everybody. Now, there are probably some costs to accepting this kind of behavior that you're not seeing, and that is that your children are learning that mommy's boundaries don't really matter, that your husband is learning that his parents' feelings matter more than your dignity. And you're teaching yourself that your vocation as a wife and as a mother has to take a back seat to the comfort, the emotional comfort of extended family. So, with all of this being said, I would like for you to just think about these questions I'm going to pose to you and really consider why you are more prone to give toxic behavior a pass during the holidays. Like, what are your reasons? Like, I gave you some of my reasons, I gave you some generic reasons, but what are yours? Because yours might be a little bit different. So, you might consider this. What toxic behavior are you tolerating this holiday season that you wouldn't tolerate in March or in the middle of August? What are those behaviors? And what would happen if you stopped believing the lie that putting up with disrespect, forbearing your toxic in-laws' behavior is the price of this holiday magic that you're really trying to achieve? And then what if Christ's peace, the real kind, doesn't require you to pretend that everything is fine? Now, you're not crazy for noticing that something feels off. If you get those not excited butterflies in your stomach, if you start feeling symptoms, if you start getting more headaches, stomach upset, stress, feeling the tension in your shoulders, you're not wrong because something is off. And you're not being un-Catholic for wanting your vocation as a wife and as a mother to be respected, even during the holidays, even though you're not the oldest generation, because, they like to throw that around too. Or this might be the last Christmas with, Aunt so-and-so. This might be the last Christmas with Grandpa Joe. That's very, very manipulative. And that doesn't mean that you still don't deserve some level of respect, some basic respect for being a human being, let alone your husband's wife and the mother of his children. So the question really isn't whether you should make everyone happy. The question is, whose happiness are you sacrificing? And is that what God is actually asking for you to do? God bless you. Go in peace. Before I sign off, I want to share something with you. In case you haven't heard, I have opened a brand new community just for Catholic wives with toxic in-laws, and it's called Catholic Wives Plus Toxic In-Laws. I know, super creative, right? But I would love for you to join me and others in this growing community. You can go to toxicinlaws.com and sign up. It's absolutely free to join the community. There is a paid section in the classroom with more resources for you on certain topics. I've already covered boundaries, I've covered legal protection, and this month, in the month of November, we are talking about handling the holidays. So if you are looking for a space to feel seen, to feel validated, to feel heard, and to get support for all these issues that you're dealing with your in-laws, because let's be honest, most people just don't get it. They just don't. If that's you, I would love to have you join us in the community at toxicinlaws.com. I hope to see you in there. Disclaimer. All content and information on this podcast and our website, including our programs, products, and or services, is for information and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional medical, psychiatric, or mental health advice of any kind, and does not establish any kind of professional client relationship by your listening to this podcast or use of my website. A professional client relationship with you is only formed after we have expressly entered into a written agreement with you that you have signed, including our fee structure and other terms to work with you in a specific matter. Although we strive to provide accurate general information, the information presented here is not a substitute for any kind of professional advice, and you should not rely solely on this information. Always consult a professional in the area for your particular needs and circumstances prior to making any professional, medical, or mental health related decisions.